Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I'm talking about Armored Core 6. I recently just played the game for the first time, and so I want to give my thoughts about it and talk about what I like and what I don't like, and yeah, that's about it. Also, I should mention, this is my first Armored Core game. I've never played an Armored Core game before this. I got into From Software from Souls games, or more specifically Elden Ring was my first From Software game, and that's how I discovered the Armored Core series. But I don't think that makes a difference in anything. I was able to get used to the combat and the gameplay just fine, and I don't think the story has anything to do with the other games. But anyway, the first thing I'm going to talk about is the actual gameplay. So when you're in a mission, how does the game play? The gameplay is really great in Armored Core 6. The gameplay is satisfying and fast. It's fast because it can be quite fast-paced, flying around, shooting other mechs. But it's also fast to get to the action, if that makes sense. In Armored Core 6, you're pretty much in constant action. There really isn't a lot of downtime like there is in Souls games. When you're in a mission, you're almost always fighting something, whereas in Souls games, you spend a lot of time walking or traversing the land, or getting things for your build, or whatever it may be. In Armored Core 6, you can load into the game and immediately be at the action, or be at the good part. The gameplay itself is, like I said, fast-paced. I came from Souls games, and the combat is drastically different. So if you thought it might be similar because it's From Software, then you would be wrong. It's very different, but I didn't really have too much of a hard time adjusting to it. It's not super hard to get used to, and there's plenty of opportunities to get used to it. You can replay missions, there's training parts, and you can just go into a test run and spawn whatever enemies you want. The gameplay is very satisfying. I know I said it's different from Souls, but it does have some similarities. In Armored Core 6, breaking your enemy's guard is very important, just like Elden Ring or Sekiro. It's satisfying to break the guard and then land a big attack with your powerful weapons. The difficulty is also something I should mention. Of course, this is made by From Software, so it can be quite difficult at times, but it's never unfair. At least I don't think it is. You can always experiment with different builds and different weapons to better suit the encounters. After playing the game and beating it, I would say that it isn't too difficult. It's definitely not as hard as Souls games. Mostly the only hard parts are the bosses, but they aren't too bad overall. Some of them can be a little tough, but some of them are pretty easy. After beating the game, I saw something on YouTube about the game being too easy with overpowered builds. It was a certain build you could make with Gatling guns, the Songbird grenade launchers, and heavy mech parts. Personally, I didn't even notice this when I played the game. I didn't really use that type of build. I had heard about this from a video by Ratatosker, who is an amazing YouTuber who you should check out, but he made a good point about this. He said that he didn't find this on his own when playing the game, and that he didn't think many other people would too if they didn't hear about it online. Most people who knew about the Songbirds and Gatling guns probably heard about it online, which ruined their experience because they didn't want to use any other build. But they probably wouldn't have known about it if they didn't see it online. He also said that it being in the game isn't a bad thing. Stuff like that is in Souls games, but you don't have to use it. I guess if you know about it, it might be hard to not use it, but again, you probably wouldn't know about it if you didn't see it online. But anyway, what about the bosses? The bosses are the highlight of the game. They're cool and exciting and challenging. There's a good variety of them too. There are some that are big machines, there are some that can fly around, and there are some that are ACs like the player is. Overall, they're fun and exciting, and some of them are even characters you talk to, which makes it more interesting. So the gameplay is pretty fun. It's fun to fly around in a mech and shoot enemies, but one of the best things about it is trying the different builds and weapons, which brings me to the next point. The customization in Armored Core 6 is really good. Just like Elden Ring, there are loads of different types of weapons and armors, and they all contribute to the different builds and the amazing amount of variety in the game. You can pretty much customize everything on your mech. You can have a gun on each arm, a weapon on each shoulder, which is usually something like a missile launcher or a big rifle, but it can be anything. You can change the head, arms, legs, and body. And you can change the boosters, power generators, and FCS, which determines how effective your weapons are at certain ranges. It's nice that there's so much variety, because you can actually make a crazy amount of combinations. You can be fast but not have a lot of health, or a huge slow tank, or anything in between, but there are also dozens of builds in those categories. Experimenting with the different weapons you unlock throughout the game is such a pleasure, and there's no worry about losing money on buying things, because you can return everything for the same price you bought it for. This is really nice, and it would be a pain if this wasn't a thing. You can really play however you want, which makes it easy for anyone to pick up. Customizing the boosters and generators and finding the perfect combination of armor for your weapons is really fun. The nice thing about the customization is that you can optimize your build and have just the right parts, but you really don't have to. You can use guns you had in the beginning of the game for the whole game. So if there's something you like and want to stick with it, you can, but there's also more options that become available to you as you progress through the game. I personally found the type of build I liked and used generally the same type of weapons for the whole game. Some of the new weapons in the shop were pretty much upgrades to the ones I had, so I switched those out, but I kept the build the same. That's for one of my builds. I had a few that I really liked. You can make presets for your builds, which makes it easy to switch between them. I made a couple builds that were my go-tos and a couple that I would use occasionally. The gameplay and customization are nice, and for most people they're probably the best things about the game. That's what I thought the game was going to be like too, until I played it myself and I realized that the story is probably my favorite thing about the game. Well, not really the story, but the characters. The characters are amazing in this game. Not the overall story, but the story of the characters and the different factions is the most interesting thing about the game for me. Over the course of the game, you meet different characters from different factions who are fighting for the coral or to protect the coral or whatever, and it's nice to see how they interact with each other. The characters themselves are cool, but even better are the decisions you can make of which ones to side with. I'm not going to spoil anything, but you can make decisions of which factions to side with in the conflict. The actual story of the world isn't really interesting to me. I don't really care about Rubicon or the coral. I don't know, it just didn't really captivate me or make me interested, but the characters very much did. The final thing for today is the replay value. Armored Core 6 does a lot of good things to keep me coming back to it. For one thing, there are multiple different endings, which tie into the different decisions you can make of who to side with. Replaying the game to make different choices than you did last time, and seeing how it affects the story is pretty cool, I'll be honest. Another thing that makes it interesting to replay the game is the different things that are added on New Game Plus. After your first playthrough, there are some unique missions that become unlocked in New Game Plus. I haven't done most of it, but I've heard that there are some completely different things you can do that lead to new endings and new outcomes of the story, which is pretty neat. So yeah, I really don't have a lot to complain about for Armored Core 6. I enjoyed almost everything about the game. There were some slow parts I had to get through, but it was definitely worth it. I'd say it's a great game and it's definitely worth playing, even if you haven't played anything like it. I had never played anything like this before, and I really liked it. So yeah, if you liked the video, leave a like, and if you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.